So much like Dave, who closed us out, when I was a kid I read a lot of comic books. And through comic books I learned that heroes were big, and heroes were strong, and heroes swooped in at the last moment to save you from some impending disaster. And most of the time I bought these comic books with my grandfather at the corner grocery from across the street from his apartment in Jersey City. And he was a mountain of a human being. He was over 6 feet tall, and he was over 400 pounds. I know this because one summer while lying on the beach, I looked over at him and I said, "Grandpa, how much do you weigh?" And he said, "Well, let me tell you, kid. Every morning I get up and I go in the bathroom and I turn on the water for the shower and I get naked. And I put one foot on the scale and I lean and I lean and I lean. And when it gets to 400, I get off." So on top of being enormous, he was also the most amazingly strong human being I've ever seen. I saw him do feats of strength all the time. He worked as a maintenance foreman for a power plant. If you're ever going over the Pulaski Skyway on your way into New York City, there are 5 power plants on the left-hand side. He was the maintenance foreman for the one with 5 smokestacks. And he fixed big giant generators and big giant steam turbines, and he used big giant tools to do that, and it built up giant muscles underneath his incredibly fat body. And, at one point they had to move from that apartment that I was talking about to a new apartment, and the new apartment was on the 3rd floor of an old Art Deco style building in Jersey City. And they quickly realized that there was no way in hell that their giant refrigerator that housed the food for this giant man was going to fit in the teeny tiny elevator to get it up to the 3rd floor. And everybody's looking at it trying to figure out how they were going to muscle this refrigerator up 3 flights of stairs. And Grandpa says, "Wait here." And he disappears up the stairway and he comes back a few minutes later with a fire hose, the entire canvas fire hose off the spool. And he wrapped the fire hose around that refrigerator 20 or 30 times, and he pulled the 2 short ends of it over his shoulders and leaned forward and popped that refrigerator on his back like it was a child's backpack and hopped it up 2 flights of stairs with no help. And he was 60 years old. So, unfortunately, a few years after that, he and my grandmother both got sick at the same exact time. She had leukemia and he had bladder cancer. And they were both admitted to St. Vincent's Hospital in New York City. And I was working there for a TV production company, and every day after work I would stop by and I would visit. And Grandpa would be holding court in the room with him and his sweet mate at the hospital and the doctors and nurses, and he'd be telling stories and keeping everybody's spirits up. And on one of these visits, as I sat in the chair next to him, he leaned over to me and he said, "Hey kid, want to know the secret of life?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "A guy walks into a doctor's office and says, 'Hey doc, it hurts when I do this.' And the doctor says, 'Then don't do that.' It's a secret of life." At the time I thought it was just Grandpa being Grandpa, trying to keep everybody's spirits up. He passed away a few weeks after that, and as I was on my way into work one day, I was going to a job that I absolutely hated. And I was working for a man who was a complete bastard, who told me every single day that I had no talent and that I was not creative and that I had no business being in the television industry, and I was lucky to have this job because nobody else would ever hire me. And I was contemplating getting out of the business entirely, and believe it or not, was taking the test to become an air traffic controller. And I came up out of the subway in front of Herald Square, in front of Macy's, and I saw all the Christmas decorations on the side of Macy's. And I remembered that we used to come up out of the same stairs to go see the Christmas show at Radio City every year with my grandparents. And all of a sudden, my grandfather's voice was in my head, as clear as a bell. And it said, "It hurts when I do this." And I knew exactly what I had to do. So that night I went to work and I stayed late and I edited myself a new demo reel and I printed out myself some brand new resumes, and the next morning I called in sick to work and I walked the entire island of Manhattan and I went to every post-production company and every editorial house that there was, and I handed out those tapes and I handed out those resumes. And 2 weeks later I had a new job And a few months after that, I was working for people who loved everything that I did and told me that I was wonderful at my job and that I was an incredibly creative person. And they were lucky to have me. So, if you ask me who my hero is, he was big and he was strong. And he swooped in at exactly the right moment to save me from impending disaster. Thank you.